I feel like people are blaming podcasters for everything in 2025.
Something happened during 2020, during COVID, where everybody just started talking.
Women have always had a voice. We finally start speaking and having a voice, and it became a problem.
Is it we? Who's the we?
Men.
I think it's great that the men are talking to each other. The problem is in your conversation pieces, you're tearing down women, in particular, Black women.
One of the great things about podcasting is that it's a wild, wild west of information. In other words, the people can vote. They can vote with their ears.
There's a lot of issues, but the real issue is, why are you listening to people that you're not fact checking?
I feel like people are blaming podcasters for everything in 2025. I don't know if it's just me. It feels like, oh, you're having relationship problems. It's because of the podcasters. Your man left you, girls, because of Red Pill, right? So I wanted to talk to y'all because honestly, I feel like we got about several podcasts in the building, right? And there's a reason why we all started podcasting, right? And I gotta believe that we didn't start it because we wanted to be toxic necessarily, or maybe toxic, right? Or to be a problem.
Right.
So what are y'all thoughts? We're gonna start with you, Crystal, because you've been in the game for a minute and you've understood like the different ways that messages have been reached. I mean, you've been featured on different shows, and so you understand this whole media game.
Yeah.
What do you think about podcasting, and has it gotten an unfair rap in terms of all of the issues in the Black community? Let's start from there.
Honestly, the crazy thing is I don't disagree with that, because I think that what happened is when I first started this, right, I had to there was gatekeeping, right? So I couldn't just put a podcast out. I started with the magazine. The publisher said, I think you have a great voice. Let's put you in this position. Let's have you talk about this. So I talked about being a celebrity publicist, which I knew very well, right? So I had to qualify to do that. Something happened during 2020, during COVID, where everybody just started talking. Like everyone started talking. And so what has happened is you have a lot of people talking from a painful place without boundaries and just and gaining an audience, because what we know, and I know, you and I know this, we did projects together a long time ago, what is going to connect with people, and what connects with people is usually authenticity and rawness, right? Realness. So when you have someone who has never been in a relationship ever in their life, getting a podcast, and they're speaking from a painful place, right? They're speaking from a place of pain, a place of resentment, probably because they don't understand why they haven't been able to be in a relationship. And they start to grow an audience based in that pain and a bit of ignorance, if you will. No disrespect. But it literally, and people are listening to it. I do think that it creates a lot of toxicity. And it's not just about relationships, it's everything. There are people that are speaking from ignorance and resentment about money. They're speaking about being a professionalism, entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur for years, and I hear so many people saying things, and I'm like, that is not true. But it sounds great because they're polished. They probably look good. They have a great lighting. All you need is lighting.
Oh, that Oprah girl.
Okay.
Oh, that Oprah. I call that Oprah. Yeah.
We would do something. I work with my client Chili. We did her show, What Chili Wants. First thing she said, what do you want? I want Oprah lighting.
Hello.
If you have the Oprah lighting and you can get enough, then, and you look like you know what you're talking about,
Absolutely.
get a good beat, right? Get a good filter, get your Oprah lighting, then you look great. And then as a guy, if you can just be passionate, because that's what we're drawn to, you could be saying stuff that makes absolutely no sense. So I think podcasters, there's a lot of issues, but the real issue is, why are you listening to people that you're not fact checking? Why are you listening to people that are speaking from emotion but aren't speaking from a place of, of education and experience? Why are we not vetting people before we listen to them? Because words are very powerful and the messages are very powerful. So I remember I was asked to speak on Revolt about Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels is one of those people, God rest his soul. But I think that he found something that worked, but no one ever said, Kevin Samuels is talking about women and how they're failing in relationships. Have we looked at Kevin Samuels' relationships?
Oh no, we're not gonna do that. We're not doing that. No. Because if we did that, everybody would get that work, right? Everybody deserves it. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Everybody needs that work. But if you're gonna talk, if you're gonna listen faithfully, because I remember watching, one of my good friends called me. He said, Crystal, you gotta watch this guy. He says the funniest thing, women get torn down, and yet they call and they say, and every single time, It says, what do you rate yourself? They give themselves a high number.
Yeah.
Then he asks how much they weigh. They go to their dress size. He said that in their confidence, with every question, you can tell they become smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So why are people doing that? Because all of us have a need for validation.
I'm with you on that, but hold on. So I feel you because you went all the way, and I get it, to the side where the Kevin, and we're not going to do Kevin Samuels. But for example, you started a podcast and you want to talk about music.
Correct.
You have the credentials, you have the experience, right? So that's not a situation. I get what Crystal's saying because that does happen for sure. But let's talk about the other reason, right, real quick, in terms of why somebody would start a podcast, because it's not just to, right? So let's talk. I just want to balance it out a little bit.
But I think there is a balance. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say. I think for me, I started because I wanted women to know there is another side.
Yeah, exactly.
I literally started my podcast because I wanted women to believe the opposite. You don't have to, we don't qualify for love. Love should be unconditional. So you shouldn't have to fit a certain dress size and look at. And I wanted to let women know that there was hope, because I realized there was such despair. And so many people feeling like I'm not worthy if I'm a man, if I don't have 6 figures and 6 pack and 6 feet, 6 pack and 6 figures, which are good stats. Which are good stats.
That's 3 sixes though. See?
Those are good stats. But I'm just saying, even if you don't have those stats, it doesn't mean you're not deserving of love.
No, I agree with you there.
And that's why I started my podcast.
But the thing is like for years, whether it's Oprah, Donahue, I don't know, whoever you want to name, women have always had a voice. Whether it be television, whether it be Sally Jesse Raphael on the radio and all this stuff, but they had a voice. We finally start speaking and having a voice, and it became a problem.
They said we, who's the we?
Men.
Okay.
Men.
Okay.
All kinds, husbands, whoever, just men in general. And we come from, especially if you're of a certain age, you come from, men kept it to themselves. Half the men that couldn't voice themselves wound up drinking themselves to death. Development, because they couldn't vent, and they couldn't, who would listen to them? And they only felt like it was them. I only feel it. And then the podcast started happening. It's like, you feel like that too? I'm not alone. So I would tell, right. So I would tell women, listen, man, give us till about the end of 2026. No, man. With this, don't even interrupt us, because the more you interrupt us, we're going to start back over again.
Right.
So just let us vent it all out, and we can maybe get to an even playing field. Shut up and let us talk.
Work through our process.
Yes. It really ain't got nothing. It has something to do with y'all. We're really talking amongst each other.
Gotcha.
Stay out of it.
Okay. Now I appreciate that.
I support that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I support that the men are talking to each other. I think it's great that the men are talking to each other.
Yes.
It's about time that you can lean on each other. The problem is in your conversation pieces, you're tearing down women, in particular, Black women in our community. And that's where the problem is. Now, you guys, I already know where you're about to jump on this.
Okay.
But one reason why I wanted to start a podcast and so forth was because I wrote a book, Black Women Need Love Too. It's a book about relationships, self-love, and community. And it's all about unpacking the harmful narratives against Black women and Black men, but with a focus on Black women, right? And so part of the reason why I wrote the book and the podcast is all a continuation was because there's so much hate towards Black women and for Black women. And so it was like, well, how do we get to this point where we are experiencing this, right? So I understand the need to talk, but it was like, is some of this internalized? Because we've actually internalized some of these harmful narratives to our detriment. And that's why when we see each other, we have problems communicating with each other.
Why do you think it's hate?
Well, so
That's how they feel about accountability.
Yeah,
Hold on. Because I feel like Jay want to follow. Because I was going to try to let Jay get up in there.
I did want to jump into that.
But
It wasn't just with the accountability thing. I've been sitting on that for a while though.
Yeah.
But
Hold on, you done? You done?
Okay, so I want to answer his question in regards to hate. And so sometimes the reason why I'm saying hate is because sometimes it came disguised as, like, for example, with Kevin Samuels. And as much as I know you said no Kevin Samuels slander, so this is not, because these women subject themselves to this, but it was the way he tore them down, right? And it was like, okay, you can tear down and she can still be held accountable for having this conversation with you because she chose it, but it's the manner in which you did so, which was through her, the entertainment, right? And I understand it was a podcast and he was getting views and values and so forth. And more importantly, she chose that. But it was also the amount of hate in regards to Black women hair. All of a sudden now we got a problem with Black women wearing weaves, wigs, and so forth. And it became a whole thing about
Here's the difference.
It became a whole thing about Black women hair versus recognizing the historical context that came with Black women hair and why we wear our hair that way. And not only that, why we still need something like the Crown Act in 2020 something to have the ability to wear our natural hair in the workplace. So it was like a clear lack of understanding, but at the same time, so it came off as hate. Now the conversations that y'all have pertaining to Black women or women in general are being shitty ass people. Let's call them out for being shitty ass people.
Yeah.
Now this I support because you can't call women out for being shitty. There's nothing wrong for saying, hey, you have bad character, you have unrealistic expectations. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not calling that hate. I'm calling the other stuff where we're exaggerating stereotypes. We're pushing harmful narratives that's not true in some extent or without context.
I like that. I
gotta push back.
I think that-
I gotta push back, and then just because, where do you draw the line? Like sometimes I might say, "Hey, this is a proper thing that I have an issue with." Oh, he's hitting on me! Oh my God! Right? So I feel I'm only pushing back because what she said sounds really, really good. Yeah. But in real application, it's not always that perfect.
Lighting good.
I think to her point, it can be. It's not a blurry line. If you are talking about if you're on a national platform and your conversation is skewered on skin tone, on hair texture, on things that are outside of someone's control. Now, if we're going to talk about character.
No, you still got to talk about that. Like you can still talk about that. But hold on, I don't want to deviate real quick.
I'm gonna get to that. Because one of the things we first started talking about, we talked about where this podcast culture came from. Right. I believe you said something about 2000, 2020, COVID happened or whatever. I also think maybe the podcasts were a natural evolution to what did happen in our music. In fact, our music was really no longer us talking to each other. So we needed a way to talk to each other. So then we had this podcast thing come out now, especially with COVID, because everybody was locked down. People were like, man, is your struggle like my struggle? Because I ain't seen you in a month of Sundays. And so we started to do that communication, right? Which is really, really dope. And of course, there were no barriers to entry, which I don't think you need barriers to entry, because once you start saying who can participate in the discourse, you control the discourse. Then we're back to mainstream media, right? Then we're back to mainstream music and all this other stuff. One of the great things about podcasting is that it's a wild, wild west of information. In other words, the people can vote. They can vote with their ears and what they think is valuable content, what they think is foolishness. If they want to back Kevin, then back Kevin because they find value in that. Now,
That's true.
Did he have to tear the women down the way he did? No, but it was funny. So people watched it.
Well, yes, in order to get the views.
In order to get the
He
views.
wasn't doing it.
How was he turning them down?
No. I'm saying,
time out.
You know what I'm saying? He could be like,
I tried.
He could be like, no, I'm telling you what.
Go ahead, please.
He could be like, hey, you know what? With the weight that you're saying right now, I think you should bring the number down a little bit. Like, I really think you're over it. He could have been softer in his
As opposed
delivery.
to making the Opa Lopa sound in the back.
Y'all,
I'm not saying he was wrong for it. I'm saying he could have gone another way. There's a good reason why he didn't.
Okay.
Right? And that's the business side of it.
Right.
He's not wrong for doing it the way he did it.
Okay.
Okay? I'm good with that.
Okay.
What I am saying, though, is that I think we should let people talk their talk. And then when you listen to their talk, so I'll say this and I'll come back to that. The problem with podcasting and most social media is that there's this very big chance for it to be an echo chamber real quick. You know what I mean? You go to people who say what you want to hear, and that's the only people you play, and you just rock with it. And whatever they say, you go with it now. People are like that. A lot of people are lazy, mentally lazy, whatever. I don't know. But for those people, you can't help those people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Sheep gonna be sheep.
That's the majority of people.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I went back and I watched that episode that made him go viral. This is Kevin Samuels, right? There was a conversation that occurred.
Okay.
Sometimes people get what they deserve in the conversation in real time. And y'all want to take the clip and be like, oh, he's doing this. No, sometimes there are shitty people who you have to talk to a certain type of way to get the fucking point across. That's just the bottom line. And I get that podcast represents that, but sometimes, it is why I'm pushing back on what you're saying, because a lot of women will hear what you're saying, like, yeah, she's right. But every criticism is a bashment, and that's not the truth.
Thank you.
Right? Every criticism is not, oh, black men are hating. No. And that kind of was part of the red pill conversation that we was having, because in part of the podcast space, men are saying, hey, we're awakening. We're realizing, and the reason why, and let's be clear, because early in the show, I grew up on R&B, right? Hey, girl, I'm going to love you. I'm going to be everything to you. I'm going to put you on a pedestal. But the expressed expectation was, you're going to show me some of that back. right? And now guys are saying that's a dream if you're believing that, because women are showing up that way today. And they're having that conversation on these podcasts.
What comes
Hell,
first?
women are also having their own conversations too. People in general are having conversations on podcasts. Many of them are not certified, they're not doctors or whatever. So I'm cool with it being the Wild Wild West. But I feel like we let the consumers off the hook because they're the ones, to your point, Crystal, bringing it all the way back, they're the ones who will listen to a Kevin Samuels and just buy what he's saying, lock, stock, and barrel, and then run outside and then repeat it like sheep, and then expect to get the same outcomes. I don't blame the people
Right, you
who are
can't.
doing the thing, but we as consumers have to be the one to discern. But let me ask you this, though. If we're willing to fall for the okie doke, wasn't there a part of the okie doke that was in us in the first place?
Yeah.
Right? Did the
Yes.
podcasters finally give the people who had a reason to complain a voice and the language?
That's all
When
I'm
we use
saying.
things like gaslighting, when we use all the
Narcissistic.
phrases, narcissistic. It's like,
I'm
yeah.
triggered.
Yeah, right.
There go another.
Right? So
I guess that's because I'm a 19. That I just have no respect for the whole. But yes, you have all you have to do. It's almost like when you are out in a pool and you're like, you feel like you're drowning, and all you have to do is stand up. All you have to do is click off. If you feel like someone is saying something that is not respecting Black women, and I do feel like that conversation is a little bit much. Like, protect Black women. Black women just turn off that channel.
Facts.
Like, it's okay. We are more than capable of turning it off. I'm not saying that it gives license to people to say hateful things, but people have been saying hateful things about us as a community for years. All you have to do is turn it off. And I think, I was talking to a friend of mine, he was like, I went back through and unfollowed things and restructured my algorithm. That's all it takes.
Facts.
And the noise will stop. Stop drowning in 3 feet water. So yes, when I look at a podcast, if it's a relationship podcast and I'm struggling in a relationship, I don't want to listen to someone who has no concept and is speaking from pain. That's all that's going to do is re-amplify and every time they speak, their pain gets louder. You receive it in a more amplified manner, right? So that's on the consumer. Consumers have to stop just taking everything that's fed to them. And you also have to be savvy enough to realize that if I listen to one podcast that downs men, right? Because there was initially, we're talking now because we don't like the fact that men are talking, and they are talking a lot. But women were talking about men. Women were talking about there was no good men for years, right?
True.
On Oprah, on all those shows, all those conversations. So if you are listening to one conversation about men ain't this, you're going to get another one offered to you and another one.
Because it's
offered to you.
algorithms, that's how it
And
works.
pretty soon,
Yeah.
all
Feed you
you
what you
have
want.
is negative. So then you see a man that's like, because all you have is all that in there. But you have to be savvy enough to understand and guard your ears and guard your heart. And so I agree with you.
You know what it reminds me of? Like when Obamacare happened, like, I know it was a good, no, I'm going to bring it all the way back. Because it was a good idea. Everybody should have insurance. But what insurance looks like today is as the patient, you have to be aware of the cost.
Right.
When you walk into the doctor's office, there's a chance you're going to get stuck with that bill. So what happens is the consumer now has more responsibility to know what they're getting themselves into, just like with podcasts.
Fact.
Right? And I think we got to really push people like, hey, I get it. You don't like some of the stuff, but understand, if you click on one thing, the algorithms, because you clicked on those things, said, oh, you like this. So that's why you're getting all those things.
Early.
Which
There's
part?
no rules to this podcast thing. We're still early.
But there's rules to
They're
social
gonna
media, though.
regulate it.
There's still rules to social media, though, right? And if you're
on the platforms,
because
different platforms,
because
right?
to me, like, that's how podcasts proliferate for the most part, right? Because we see clips on social media.
Right,
But
right,
how different is podcast from the radio or Tom Jones or like all the different mediums where radio or the conversation was being had? Sally Jesse
for years on the radio.
That's what I was about to say. If Sally Jesse was on the radio, she'd be a podcast, right? So it's not that the
Thank you.
format is different. What I think is different is technology has allowed regular folks
Everybody
to
do
get
it.
on YouTube like the rest of us, right?
have it in your hand.
And you can have it in your hand and do content. And then to your point about technology, it's cheaper to get cameras now. You can get a decent setup for a couple of $100 and be out there and not look that bad.
Yeah.
And then you got cap cut on your phones. And you got 12, right?
Also, so it goes back to what's about technology. Technology has taken out accountability from anything.
Yes.
So even if I'm not saying that, I know people like, oh, I rage against the machine. I don't want the gatekeepers. That's fine. But there should be some level of skill. But technology has made it to where you can have someone who is a psychopath who is able to get the $200 setup with his iPhone, a stand, some light,
Absolutely.
and rock and roll. And
Rock
then
and
you're
roll.
upset because your life is this person is doing this and is influencing, and this person is a whole psychopath.
That's a fact.
It's just like there is no, technology is great, but technology also has its It's a ditch on either side of the road, and you have to know as a consumer that it is your job. It is no one else's job but you to dictate what goes into your ears and what goes into your psyche, what goes into your heart, and what you put around you. You are responsible for managing your content.